This is the Pixel 10a, and it is now the best phone you can get if your budget is capped at $500. It features some great spec upgrades over the Pixel 9a from last year, and it has a cool new design element that sets it apart in the entire smartphone market. A completely flat back with no camera bump at all. So, having said all that, do you care? Does anyone care? Because after using this phone for just under 2 weeks now, I found that despite how good it really is, I haven't been excited about anything about it. It's just there. A phone that does phone stuff. So if you're an Android Authority subscriber, you probably watched the video I made for the Pixel 10a launch day. If you haven't, check it out up here. The basic gist though was that there are many other phones out there that would cost you about the same $500 as the Pixel 10a, but give you more features. Alternatively, you could spend a lot less and get a phone that is so close to this that any normal person would be more than happy with it. Underneath that video, there were hundreds of comments, with many people saying they got the Pixel 10a for a steep discount through their carrier. In some cases, people were talking about how it slashed 50% off the phone's list price. These people sounded very happy with their purchase decisions. So, as I was brainstorming the script for this video, I couldn't stop thinking about these comments. I had just spent over 10 minutes of video time trying to explain that buying the Pixel 10a was a bad idea, but that didn't seem to matter. And that's when it hit me. The Pixel 10a is actually incredible. It's just that no one really cares about it. So I want to dive deeper into that thought, but first I want to explain what's actually different with this phone when compared to the Pixel 9a from last year. The design is a big one. The Pixel 9a had a much smaller camera bump than we had ever seen on any Pixel, including the Pixel 8a. And then the Pixel 10a takes that a step further by literally removing the camera bump entirely. Now, the front and back of the phone feel pretty much the same, totally flat. This is great when you've got the phone flat on a table as you have zero table wobble. Of course, it's not great when you have the phone in your pocket as it's not super easy to tell without looking if you're touching the front or touching the back. In other design changes, Google updated the color options to include newcomers like berry, lavender, and fog, along with the standard colorway, obsidian. The phone is also a tiny bit shorter than the Pixel 9a and surprisingly, a very tiny bit thicker. This extra thickness is curious as a design element that's not here is Pixelsnap, the magnetic ring on the back of all the other Pixel 10 phones that people pretty much universally love, but Google decided not to bring to the Pixel 10a for whatever reason. Now that the iPhone 17e has MagSafe support, I bet Google's feeling pretty dumb right now. The final design upgrade is the glass. Every single A series phone, except for the very first one, has had Gorilla Glass 3 on the front. The Pixel 10a finally gets with the times and jumps to Gorilla Glass 7i. This is much better glass. It's not as good as Gorilla Glass Victus 2 and doesn't have any of the fancy features of Gorilla Armor or Gorilla Glass Ceramic, but in 2026, I'll take anything that's not Gorilla Glass 3. Anyway, outside of the design, there have been some decent spec bumps. The phone charges slightly faster, both with a cable and wirelessly. The display has a peak brightness that is slightly brighter than what we saw on the Pixel 9a. There's also a new modem inside, the Exynos Modem 5400, which is a newer model than the 5300 in the Pixel 9a. This brings a few new features, including Bluetooth 6.0 and satellite messaging support. Out of the box, the Pixel 10a supports emergency satellite messages only, and they only work here in the United States. But hey, it's an upgrade. Finally, there are some new software features. As you'd expect, this comes with the latest version of Android 16 out of the box, but it also comes with two features that all other A series phones don't have. The first is Auto Best Take, which automatically stitches together group photos to make sure everyone's best face is included. The second is Camera Coach, which helps you frame your shots through AI supervision. Unfortunately, some of the more popular Pixel AI features aren't available here, such as Magic Q and Pixel Screenshots, but who knows, maybe Google will bring them over later. So that's everything that's new. You'll notice I didn't say anything related to battery, cameras, RAM, internal storage, or the processor. That's because they are all the same as what we saw on the Pixel 9a. The inclusion of Tensor G4 in particular has been pretty controversial, with a lot of people, including me, wondering why Google would ever even think it could get away with that without facing heavy pushback from fans. But here we are. The Pixel 10a has a 2024 processor in it, and there's nothing we can do about it. As one would expect, our various benchmarks show the Pixel 9a and Pixel 10a being neck and neck across the board. Although you might see one overtaking the other in a test here, that's likely more to do with the inherent margin of error with these tests and not any real indication that one phone is actually better than the other. Of course, you don't buy a Pixel for raw hardware performance, so these numbers likely don't mean much to people who are realistically thinking about buying a Pixel 10a. Even the most expensive Pixel phone isn't much more powerful than this. So, as upset as many people might be about Google's strategy here, the actual performance of the phone is terrific. Outside of content creation and hardcore gaming, there's nothing this phone can't do for you. The average person will see no difference between this and something with more powerful, more expensive hardware. As far as battery and charging go, things are mostly the same here too. Even though the Pixel 10a definitively charges faster than the Pixel 9a, the real-world benefits of that are pretty nominal. Since the battery capacity didn't change, real-world battery life is mostly the same too. I can easily get a full day out of the 5100 mAh cell, but getting 2 days would be tricky. Just plan on charging the phone when you go to bed each night. Since the camera hardware is all the same, it should be unsurprising to know that the photos you can capture with the Pixel 10a are just as good as the ones we saw from the 9a. In fact, the wide and ultra-wide cameras on the back are identical to the ones on the Pixel 10. So, if you don't use the telephoto lens that often, getting the Pixel 10a will give you the same photography experience as the much more expensive Pixel 10. Pretty much everyone watching this knows that the Pixel camera experience is a great one, especially when you're only spending $500 on it. This will always be one of the greatest strengths of A-series Pixel phones. You get a premium camera experience for a mid-range price. Alright, let's get back to the beginning here and talk about why no one cares about this phone. The way I see it, there are two types of smartphone buyers. The first is the person who loves smartphones. They get a thrill every time they take one out of the box. They love setting it up, trying out new features, running around their local park, taking test photos, and all that. For those people, getting a new smartphone is one of the best days of the year. But then, there's a second group, which is people who don't care at all about their phones. For them, getting a new phone is either a completely neutral experience or even a chore. They hate setting up a new phone, hate figuring out what case to get for it, and hate any potential learning curve there might be as they get used to the new software. For them, getting a new phone is a day like any other. The thing that we tend to forget, and by we, I mean people who watch videos like this one, is that the second group of people is the norm. There are way more people out there who don't care at all about their phones than there are of people like us. So in a way, Google has made the perfect phone for them. The Pixel 10a is cheap, beautiful, and durable, with a terrific camera experience and 7 years of software support. Yes, it's only slightly better than the Pixel 9a, but it is better. Even if it wasn't, the target market for this phone wouldn't care anyway. So what Google has done here is make a terrific phone that it's difficult to be passionate about. And you know what? That's fine. Using this phone for the past 2 weeks has been fine. It feels like any other Pixel, and only people who really care about phones would notice any difference between this and a Pixel 10 Pro or even a Galaxy S26 Ultra, but those people aren't going to buy this phone anyway. So what does it matter? So yeah, the Pixel 10a is a great phone. And that's that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about the Pixel 10a in the comments. See you all later.